Sorry. Good evening and welcome to the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It's now 7 p.m. and I would like to start this meeting. I'm Councillor Adam Carter and I am the chair of this committee. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed on the Council's website. Officers attending virtually, please use the raise your hand option, and Rhianna will let me know if when you've raised your hands. With that, I'd like to move to item 1, apologies for absence. I've not received any apologies, Rhianna?
Yes, we've just had one from Jenny Coles.
Thank you very much. Item 2, the minutes. I move that the minutes of the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee of the 17th of November 2022 to be approved as the correct record. Are there any comments on the accuracy of the minutes? No? The minutes are approved. Item number 3, items of urgent business. I have not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare? No? Okay. Right, with that we move to item 5, the Youth Cabinet update. Can I ask Molly Quincy to provide an update, please, to the committee?
Thank you. So the Youth Cabinet has been working on monthly meetings. So at November's monthly meeting, our guest speaker was the Mayor of Thurrock, Councillor James Holden, and the Cabinet members for the Children's Services and Education, Councillor Barry Johnson. They came to speak to Youth Cabinet about their roles and answered a lot of questions we had. The Mayor also asked a member if they would like to use the chambers for future monthly meetings, in which we politely accepted. At December's monthly meeting, we met in the chambers for the first time, post-pandemic. We were very excited to be in the space. All Youth Cabinet members felt it was a significant step forward in acknowledging the work we do and the importance of what we are trying to achieve in amplifying the youth voice. Our guest speaker at our December monthly meeting was a Cultural Education Partnerships Manager. The purpose of this was not only to raise awareness for the Cultural Education Partnership Manager role and remit, but also to discuss what young people's priorities are for the arts and culture. Some good discussions and feedback were given by Youth Cabinet members, including the linking with our youth music consultation, as spoken about in our previous update, and adding a few arts and culture questions to the survey that will be going out to young people in the new year. We look forward to having an ongoing connection with the Cultural Education Partnerships Manager and potentially being involved in Cultural Conference next year. And our working group meetings in November and December's working group meetings. In November and December's working group meetings, we focus on our group sessions with Thurrock Councillors' local power manager. The aim of the focus group sessions are to discuss and give feedback on emerging local plan, which is likely to have a big impact on all the lives of all young people living in the borough, as it will set out a development strategy for the next 15 years onwards. We are currently exploring the identified issues within the borough and have been highlighted by the Cabinet in finding potential solutions in these from a youth perspective. Members are enjoying this work as they feel that their thoughts and views of the future to the borough are being heard, listened to, and included to the plans that matter. The Youth Cabinet news and promotion. The Youth Cabinet have been working hard on the Thurrock Youth Cabinet, specifically on the ones on who we are and what we do. Members have been working on the text context to send to the communications team for them to share the residents on the e-newsletter, Inspire bulletin e-newsletter and the social media channels. Hopefully you saw some of these features posts in the new November and December. See Appendix 1 and 2. The article that we went about our NYP's visit to the House of Commons, see Appendix 1, resulted in 85 clicks to the Youth Cabinet webpage, and that was the second highest click links stat in this week's edition. Members are pleased with this stat result, as 85 people are interested in what we are doing and now aware of us. Our aim is to build upon the link click stats, and when more regular features are put out to the public, the comms team will be providing with a monthly link stats for us and review and discuss. Members are excited to speak out about big Youth Cabinet news, so it will spread far and wide. And the Youth Cabinet recruitment drive. The Thurrock Youth Cabinet is still looking to grow its numbers and gain good representation from Thurrock schools, colleges and youth groups. If you have any young person in mind that you think would like to be a part of the Youth Cabinet, then please let us know at youthcabinet@thurrock.gov.uk. Thurrock 11 to 25 Strategy Group. The Youth Cabinet Chair and Vice Chair continue to attend the 11 to 25 strategy meeting to update head teachers on positive work being achieved within the Youth Cabinet. Head teachers have committed to driving numbers up in their schools and the work on the horizon for Youth Cabinet. Another wellbeing walk is in the pipeline for February half-term. We are currently linking with Thurrock's Community Engagement and Project Monitoring Officer to help to development during a Youth Cabinet consultant profile. This will allow Youth Cabinet members to carry out questionnaires, polls safely to list all Youth to allow Youth Cabinet members to list Youth Cabinet currents and past news for features for people to read. Our aim is to ensure all news, past or present, is kept available to the public in one place at all times, so they'll be able to look back and or keep up with the Youth Cabinet's affairs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that update, Molly. It's always great to hear from the Youth Cabinet, and it's nice to hear you're still going with that recruitment drive, and I look forward to asking you questions on it at the next committee. Do any members have any questions for you? Councillor Kerry.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you to yourself and to the whole of the Youth Cabinet for the work you do. I just fully support your recruitment drive. The more voices we have, the better. Really interesting report, and I liked hearing about the member of the Youth Parliament, Lionel, who was talking about the campaigns that you're taking on as a group. And I noticed that with a majority vote, the priority campaign is cost of living and health. I just sort of wondered what things yourself and the Youth Cabinet have in mind to try and raise attention to the issue, and what support you would like from us as councillors and from officers of the council to help you push this campaign.
Would you like me to step in, Molly?
Yes, please, Angela.
Hi, I'm Angela. I'm the Youth Cabinet lead. Thank you, for pointing that out. The cost of living crisis and health is the main campaign for this year. The campaign process for that hasn't started yet because it's linked with the British Youth Council. So Lionel is currently linking with other members of Youth Parliament from around the country at the moment, and they're kind of building that campaign at the moment. So that will hopefully be released later in the year, around March, April time, so we can keep you informed. And really thank you for the offer, and I'm sure that we will be taking you up on that.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Angela. I'm interested in the work you've been doing around the local plan, because I think it's great that colleagues have come to discuss with you around the local plan. But I'm wondering what the next stage of that may be, and how we ensure actually that we've got wider representation from young people about the local plan, because as you quite rightly say, it's a very, very important document for the council. So I'm just interested in just understanding a little bit more about how that's going to be sort of driven forward.
Kirsty has really kind of got the local plan manager, has got the main steer on all of that at the moment. The last time that she came was to our November working group meeting. The focus is really on, at the moment, she's bringing thoughts to the Youth Cabinet working group meeting, and the members are identifying problem areas within the borough, and the process is that they're kind of solving those problems, and then what they're doing is taking those issues out to members of their family, their friends, young people at their school, and they're kind of discussing those issues and how they could potentially be overcome. The work is only really in the beginning stages at the moment, and the local plan manager has a regular attendance at the she has a regular slot at the working group meetings. She will be coming back for January, February, so it will be an ongoing process, and she assures us that those feedback will be implemented into the plan. So as and when we know more, I can feed that back to you.
Thank you very much for that. I've been gestured by the other Councillor Coxhill in the room who would like to provide a question. I'm going to allow it.
It's not actually a question, actually. It's actually me as not as lead of the council. It's actually me as the lead on growth and the local plan. And I'm glad to hear the feedback that you had with Kirsty and the youth cabinet. I think it's critical in it. I only had a conversation this week with Kirsty about the local plan and going forward, and as it's 2040, and how we can engage more youth people in at school age or just leaving, because that is the problem of how homes, and the home's the problem in 2040 when this plan is the local period, is that exactly what you're talking about and excited about. I'm so glad that you are engaging in the process, and the plan was to make it more engaging for the youth cabinet and everyone at school, because the best thing is not just to go home to your parents and say get engaged in this local plan, because people don't engage until right at the last minute, and we end up with planning applications and planning and housing. But the only way you can build more homes is for these young people. It's not for anyone else, it's for the young people of our borough to stay in the borough. And I'm glad you're engaging in that and making sure they're the most important people actually in this local plan, because this plan is yours in when we're all gone. We're all left here, including my son over the other, Mr. Coxhill over there, the other end. This plan will still be here. Remember, it was last done in '96. That was a long while ago. And this plan will still be talked about sitting here by other councillors in 2040, and that won't be our plan. And that is the people. You're the only people who are involved in this plan. We'll be there then, and that's hopefully it's your plan. So tell your parents, get involved as well.
Thank you very
much.
Thank you very much for those words, Councillor Coxhill. Following on from that, I'd like to know, Molly, how accessible did you find the information for the local plan? Because I am aware it is difficult to get youth engaged in local politics, but I'd love to know if you found that information easy to understand, easy to follow, or was it just bombarded at you?
Well, it took me a while to fully understand it, but it was a really eye-opening things about how local plans can actually really help and really impact the environment that we live in a way. And I was really thankful for the opportunity to help build the new working plan for the new year. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coxhill.
The younger.
I take my time.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm really glad, actually, Molly, that you've actually found it accessible, because if I roll back the years on myself slightly, in 2016 I was on the youth cabinet, and myself was actually in one of those working group meetings talking about the local plan. And I even know some of my colleagues there at the time on the youth cabinet were just bombarded immediately and had they were essentially given information at a very high level that what we expect planning consultants and anyone who council officers to really understand. So I'm actually really glad that it's starting to be more accessible and open, and I really look forward to seeing what you come up with in later working plan sessions.
If I can add, I'd like to sing the local plan manager's praises, actually, because the way that she's gone about this, she's really broken it down to make it really clear. So she's just taken one element at the moment and made some really lovely slides to make it quite accessible. So it's easy flowing for them. And yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to pop along one time if you wish.
Is it Kirsty? She also had a few games and stuff to make it trying to write down all the ideas, or mind maps and stuff, or something that could help improve the local plan or something, so it gets us really engaged in a way.
Yeah, lots of scribbling, lots of ideas, post-it notes on the walls, wasn't it?
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Kerry.
Thank you. Yeah, just something that Councillor Mark Coxhill said is really quite interesting. That the whole idea of looking ahead at the housing needs of the current youth and the future jobs needs and things like that. And I think as well as traditional things that a lot of youth cabinets look at, like youth services and things like that, it'd be good to see greater input on things like housing and that, because like you said, it is true that you guys are going to be the ones who are going to be living this plan when you're in your prime, when you're starting out your sort of adult lives and into your careers and things. So just greater sort of input on how you see your futures going would be brilliant for this process.
Well, thank you very much for that. I think the view of the committee is this is a very positive report, and we really thank you for coming to present it to us, Molly. Does any member have any final questions? Yes. Councillor Panjala.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's not a question, just I would like to appreciate and for the contribution from the Thurrock Youth Cabinet, what they are doing. So this will be a great platform for the younger leaders, because today's younger leaders, tomorrow's is future leaders. So taking feedback from the younger leaders, it will be a great, for the councillors and the council officers to think about in their perspective, point of view, and what are the requirements they are looking for the better future. So council team and council officers can work and they can deliver according to their requirement. So just I am appreciating about to continue your efforts, and I hope we will create more younger leaders through this Thurrock Youth Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. That's really lovely, and I'll take that feedback to all of Youth Cabinet members. They'll really appreciate your words, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was very well summed up, Councillor Panjala. So if no one's got any further questions, we could move on to item number 6, which is the overview of responsibility of the portfolio holder for children's services. A verbal update. Thank you for coming, Molly and Angela. You are welcome to stay for the committee if you want, but you can also leave if you would like to. But we really appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Cheers. So yes, item number 6 is the overview of responsibilities of the portfolio holder for children's services. But Councillor Barry Johnson is here, and he will be providing a verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for inviting me to give this quick overview of the portfolio and to attempt to answer any questions you may or may not have. The portfolio, as I see it, has 2 significant parts to its makeup, and whilst education and skills and children's social care and early help sound very different, they do work very, very closely together. I'm sure you're all aware that only one school remains under direct local authority control in Thurrock, with the rest either being standalone academies or multi-trusts. But the authority is still very much involved with the school community and provides some vital information and assistance to all our schools as and when it's necessary. The Director and Assistant Director hold regular fortnightly meetings with the CEOs and school heads over Teams, which I also attend as and when my day job allows. And this insight into the daily highs and lows in schools helps both the authority and the schools appreciate what's going on. The authority also retains the responsibility of ensuring we have enough school places, but unfortunately the main area within education that the authority does retain is the appeal process for admissions and homeschool transport. And I've been involved in a couple of the homeschool transport issues recently, and they can be quite emotional, to be perfectly honest. I would recommend all members to try to make themselves aware of Thurrock's policy of the homeschool transport, as it may assist you in answering questions from concerned residents when they ask, because it is quite complex, to be perfectly honest. We've had highlights in what I would categorise as the skills element with the adult college, with the funding over 3 years, and currently sees Year 1 implementation plan approved, with Year 2 plan soon to be submitted. The SEND delivery, which currently sees a regular cohort of approximately 120 children and young people from our targeted schools attend activities at Grange Waters at the moment, which goes a long way to supporting our Ofsted development plan. And we also deliver family activities for most school holidays. You've just seen, or had a very precise update from the Youth Cabinet, and I'd like to say, which I think is a regular feature here of your ONS committee, which is very good. I'd just like to say a big thank you to them. I don't know if they have gone, but I do remember the grilling they gave myself and Mr Mayor. It was quite an enjoyable evening. I'm very much looking forward to being a judge on the return of Thurrock's next Next, Top Boss, which is in a slightly different format and with a very exciting new partner, which will, I'm sure, connect very well with Thurrock students. Future Skills is a new innovative provision for our most vulnerable SEND young persons, and this will also assist the preparing for the adulthood team very considerably. The summer holiday activity programme continues to grow and thrive as we had close to 13,000 spaces on offer across 24 clubs, with many schools also participating. We have had and do have challenges. Probably one of the most regrettable decisions, well, I say regrettable, hard decisions that came across my desk was the necessary closure of the 2 nurseries in Tilbury. However, we've not had a single parent who has stated to us that they are unable to access nursery provision, so I'm grateful for all the work that my team and council staff put in to alleviating problems that could have easily emerged in that community. As mentioned earlier, home-to-school transport is a real financial challenge going forward. I would like to assure the committee that we continue to look at ways we can reduce spend, but at the same time not putting our children and young persons at risk. A further challenge is the continued increase in educational healthcare plans, or EHCPs as they're commonly known, as we currently have in excess of 2,000 plans. And whilst the quality of the plans has improved considerably, with a significant number being quality assured as good, this sheer number is proving to be difficult. And with financial pressures on services right across the board, we're looking at ways to develop new operating models. Perhaps I can now point out some key highlights and some of the work undertaken along with the priorities and challenges in the social care and early help element. This service is on a constant state of alert to be prepared for regulatory external Ofsted inspections, but continues to support children, young people and families to ensure they receive the right service and, just importantly, at the right time. To achieve this goal, it is imperative that good corporate parenting is embedded right across this council, so these vulnerable children and young persons receive the same care and attention that each of us would wish for our own children. I'm sure you do not need reminding, but as elected members we are all corporate parents. This necessitates working closely with colleagues in adult social care and housing, continuing to work to reduce youth violence and child exploitation, prevent gang membership and adopt a think family approach with the continued recruitment to expand our Thurrock-based foster carers and adopters, which will then, when achieved, will ensure that children hopefully receive a seamless service. Our quality of practice through signs of safety approach is integrated into all social work teams, and they are receiving ongoing training tailored to their area of work. This quality of practice is monitored via multi-agency audits, and there are many signs of confidence growing, with more than 70% of audits graded good or better. Child protection and looked after children reviews are both remote and face-to-face, but I'm pleased to report that on average 98% of children have had face-to-face visits in the year. And at the end of December 2022, 100% of children were seen face-to-face, with 95% of those visited within the timescale. Our early help services are integral to the Start for Life Family Hubs programme, a report on which I see from your minutes was presented at your last meeting. And I'm very proud that back in April 22, Thurrock became one of only 75 local authorities eligible to join the programme, reflecting on our Think Family approach, which is strengths and relationship based, complementing signs of safety and other existing practice models, along with our mapped out provision alongside health and education partners to determine how best to deliver the funded elements of that programme. We've seen a reduction in contacts and referrals of children in need of around 100 from the end of March 22 to the end of December 22, but we continue to work closely with partners to ensure that children receive more than just a statutory service only when more is required. The number of children subject to a protection plan has stabilised between 90 and 98, which is below statistical and national averages and can be attributed to a combination of factors. The number of children looked after reduced from 301 in 2021 to 292 in 21-22 and appears to be holding steady around this number, which is slightly below statistical and national averages. The aftercare service, which is an extremely important part of our delivery, is currently supporting 257 care leavers aged 18 to 25, and all were ensured of a clear plan over the Christmas period, so no one will be isolated. and our close work with housing has seen 27 young people gain social housing between January 21 and December 2022. We're now required by the Home Office to accommodate up to 45 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, which has risen from our allocation of 31, which is to ensure a fair distribution of the national responsibility to do so. Adoption recruitment continues to be positive in line with Thurrock's needs. However, in line with national challenges, there is difficulty in recruiting the volume of foster carers we would like. But recruitment activity in this area continues to be significant. There are currently 9 households in assessment and 5 families have been approved year to date. Whilst I agree we would like this number to be significantly higher, I am confident that without our current levels of activity in the recruitment market, things could be a lot worse. One area we are developing is a residential home offer. 2 homes have been registered with Ofsted and will soon hopefully assist us in having strategic oversight of the placement spend, ensuring our resources are appropriately used. I do recall one particularly enjoyable event evening in 2022, and that was the celebration of foster carers' achievements back in October. I met an individual who had been fostering in Thurrock for over 40 years, which was a remarkable achievement, and to listen to some of those people's stories, it was truly humbling. Our YOS provision was inspected by His Majesty's Inspector, I think it was inspected by Her Majesty's, wasn't it, in May 2022, and was graded good, with our resettlement policy noted as a model of good practice. We have many successful participation and inclusion events with cohorts of children, which included the Looked After Children's Award, which I was very honoured to open. The Children in Care Council continues to meet bi-monthly and attend this committee, I do believe, and I do recall a particularly lively meeting that the Director of Children's Services and I had with them in 22, where some very helpful comments and some very interesting questions were raised. I hope that's given you a small insight, a very quick insight, in some of the work undertaken and some of the challenges within the portfolio. And I would conclude by adding my thanks to all the staff involved in my area for their thoroughly professional and caring work. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions you might have, as I have all my officers here, so I'm sure we can answer them one way or the other.
Thank you very much for that update, Councillor Johnson. I was going to say who has agreed to answer questions, but you've already clarified that bit. I would just like one point of clarity before I open up to the other members, and that's you said there was 5 foster carers had been recruited year to date, so that's 2023. I was going to say that's incredible. That is truly incredible. And that's why I thought it would be best to clarify. So I've now opened the floor to members. I saw Councillor Anderson's hand up.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your report. You made really brief mention of children and gang activity in your report, and it's something I've brought up on committee before. County lines, it's a real big issue. I was just wondering if I appreciate it's an issue that goes across cabinet portfolio holders as well, but I was just wondering if you could give us an overview of what sort of work you do within the portfolio to help tackle that issue in the borough.
The main aspects of stopping it comes out into other portfolios. I think the biggest work we can do within this portfolio is to establish which children or young person is liable to go down that line, and ensure that we work with them on a very, very close basis to try and stop that. But in all honesty, as it goes further with the gang membership, it does go into a lot of other portfolios where they will have the final stop-go attitude. But I think our main job is to find those children at a very early age, or those young persons, to try and stop them going down that route. And I think that's what Janet does very well.
Sheila.
Just going to add to what Councillor Johnson was saying is quite often in children's social care, we find out about these young people at the point they've already become involved, are on the edges or on the periphery. The community safety is usually at the antisocial behaviour level, so at perhaps an even earlier age than us. But when they come on our radar, you know, we have preventative workers in our youth offending service, and we have a particular gangs lead as well, who's somebody who reaches out to predominantly young boys, but it isn't always, but it's predominantly young boys. So we have a male worker as well who can reach out to those children and young people. And also in our children's social care service, sometimes families really struggle with some of the behaviours that their children are exhibiting. It's not because they're not trying really hard. Some of the families are trying really hard to deal with some very difficult issues for them, because at that age children get drawn into what their mates are doing or influences outside of the home. So our social workers can become involved where we feel that there is danger of exploitation to those children and young people, either to themselves or to others. And so social workers also work with families, and we do put in as much support as we can to try and divert, to put prevention in and to get young people on another course. Janet probably add more.
So just to sort of add to that as well, our LSCP undertook a thematic review around youth violence with a focus on learning from best practice. So that's something we're taking forward, and we've got actions from that plan. We've developed a plan from that, and we've got actions. As Sheila said, we've got a gangs worker, but we've also got other things coming into force as well. So we've got funding from the Violence and Vulnerability Board to make sure that we can kind of engage with schools. So we've managed to secure funding to get a worker to go into schools to work with young people before they get into that situation. We've got Claire online, who's our strategic lead for the youth service. She is there for our YOS service, and there's quite a lot going on at the moment. So we're trying to make sure that all that work is coordinated. I'm trying to put in extra training for the social workers, and making sure we're working closely with our partners. And we do quite a lot of mapping to make sure we're clear about who those young people are, and try and sort of disrupt some of that behaviour and make sure we're putting plans in place for them.
Thank you very much for that. Does that answer your question, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Kerry.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for coming, Councillor Johnson. And can I just thank your team as well for the work they do, and special mention to Michelle and Sheila, who have, offered me briefings and keep me informed of the work that's going on. So thank you for that. The first one, I don't know if it's a question for Councillor Johnson or if it's for the officer. With the fact that portfolio holders don't present their reports to full council anymore, this is a verbal update, so am I assuming that next meeting, the last one of the municipal year, we'll get the portfolio holder report for municipal year 22-23?
I think I have to be invited to do it, Martin. I'm not sure if there's a... Sorry, Councillor. I'm not sure if there is a written, they have to be done. I'm not sure. But I'll go with whatever. I mean, I don't mind coming and doing it if you want me to.
Yeah, I'll ask the Chair to invite you at the end. So,
I'm on holiday then.
thank you very much for that. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, in terms of the work you do with schools and the fact Grays Convent is the only sort of local authority school now, what would you say would be the main differences your dealings would be with, say, Grays Convent compared to other schools that aren't that are all academised and in trusts now? Like practical sort of examples.
In all honesty, Councillor, that there is no difference. I mean, and I think I'm not speaking out of turn because I think Grays Convent is on the verge of becoming part of a trust or an academy anyway. So, in all honesty, they aren't. But even when it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of difference. As I said, I think we're very involved with the school communities. In fact, I don't mind going on record saying I was shocked when I took over this portfolio to see the amount of improvement boards and development boards that all these officers sit on, and kindly invited me to go to as well. And there are lots of them. So, but in answer to your question, there has really been no difference. Yeah. We've been involved with them right all the same.
To carry on, Chair. You know, the fortnightly Teams meetings that you have with all the CEOs, what would you say are the main sort of issues that are coming up consistently that schools are facing, that trusts are facing, and is there anything they reach out to the council for support with?
I mean, the main one in the period I've been here was during COVID, or what happened during COVID, the lack of staff and things along those lines. But I would say that's hard to answer, Sheila, because those meetings are really quite they're quite open and relaxed. There's not really an agenda. Well, there is an agenda, but there's not an agenda as such, and it comes out. Everything that comes out is like a very relaxed atmosphere. So I wouldn't say there was anything specific that they come and ask with, but I think they just like that fact that the council is there, or they know the council is there, that they can come and ask. Obviously, their more technical questions and whatever would be directed at the officers anyway. Yeah. So I'd really, most of the time I'm there on a listening brief, if you like. Yeah. It's very rare that I do step in and say something, because there's not a lot of need. They're all answered very professionally. But
if I could just add to that, I think the question you asked originally about the schools mainly being academies and what's different, having the CEO, and we also invite the heads of the primary, primary Heads Association and the Secondary Heads Association, they come along as well, so that we cover all schools. And I think the function that we perform as the local authority is giving a forum for those trusts to be able to come together in a way that they wouldn't naturally. So I think all of the CEOs and the heads of those two meetings really value the opportunity to be in a virtual room together, and quite often we will discuss whatever the local issues are at that moment. So funding is quite often an issue that schools will talk about, as most of us do. But we have all sorts of things. So I think at the last meeting we invited our public health director to talk about strep A and scarlet fever and what the advice is and how schools. So we can be very agile in those meetings. If the schools say to us, we want to talk about this issue that's happening right now, we get people in to help and support them. So I think one of the key things is it's a really great forum that's informal, formal, but actually the local authority are the brokerage, if you like, to enable trusts to talk to each other, and they learn from each other. So if someone's had an officer inspection, they give the learning to the other trusts, and they're willing to come and talk to them. So I think that's probably, so it's hard to say what's the key thing. I think the most important thing about that meeting, and in COVID we had it weekly, and we tried really, I've been trying hard for the last year to try and reduce that meeting down, and they are absolutely adamant that this is a really great space that they think we facilitate, and it helps with the working.
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging that you have this, because it gives a bit of a Thurrock-centric view on education, because, as you know, trusts aren't some trusts might be geographically based, but most cross borders into different authorities, different regions, that sort of thing. So just, brilliant for that. In terms of school places, I just wonder if you have an update on Alsett Heath Academy, because of the issues there with a year group, a whole cohort not being ready for a whole cohort, and how that's affected or is affecting admissions at the moment.
I am going to defer this to Michelle, but yes, obviously it has affected admissions, but I do believe we now have the date when they will have their first cohort in, do we not? Yeah.
Apologies. I'll take that one, Councillor Kerrin. So the first part of the question is, you're quite right, we have got 120 places that won't be offered in September due to the decision of Alsett Heath in response to the building not being ready. But what I want to reassure committee is, and again this comes back to our relationship with schools. So we've been meeting with our secondary colleagues for a while now. We've got a follow-up meeting this week, and we've already had a number of schools offer us to take bulge classes, so that we have got enough school places for September. So, we're working hard with our schools to enable us to ensure that we do have a school place for all of our secondary pupils. But there's no doubt that has put strain on the system because of the challenges around the building. And just to reiterate, that was an unfortunate thing that happened. It was one of those things that actually nobody was at fault here. It was just circumstances, and that's left us in this position. So, but we're working hard to ensure that we've got enough school places.
Just say that's the overriding thing. As the portfolio holder, are we sure we have those places? And as long as I'm assured of that, then that's fine.
You know I never say no.
Thank you. Just a few other things. I'm ticking them off as I go through, Councillor. In terms of SEND and the children, the 120 children who currently use Grange Waters and everything, with that in mind, have you got an update or anything on the future of Grange Waters, please?
I'd still say there's nothing definite about it, no. But what I'd like to say is that all those activities that are undertaken at Grange Waters could be undertaken just as easily at Stubbers or elsewhere. So, that cohort, although it's a fantastic place to have at the time, and we use it, if it does go, it's not going to put that at any risk. But no, I don't have an update on the actual outcome for Grange Waters.
Thank you. As well, I know that there's a big difference between sort of the statutory services that we offer and other services. Now, with the current financial situation of the council, could you just initially sort of update us on any work that's been done in identifying the way forward? Because clearly the current situation is going to impact the whole of the council, and what sort of work has been done in identifying what work has to continue regardless and what things are up for review?
Well, let's just start from the beginning. Statutory services will not be affected. They can't be. The Section 114 quite clearly stated that. That was, when it was reported last Monday or whenever. I hope that as little as possible within this portfolio will be affected, because the vast majority of it is statutory. There are areas outside which are not statutory, which are being looked at. As I said, the leaders made it quite clear, everything is on the table. There is nothing that cannot be looked at. So other than that, Councillor, I can't really say be any more specific, other than it will not affect the statutory duties. Most of this portfolio is statutory. But as the leader said, everything else is to be looked at. I can't go in any deeper and anything else, because we are doing work, but that's not something I can bring forward at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. Because obviously, I know that yourself personally would, you'll always defend the statutory services, because that's our duty as councillors, and I know officers will do their level best for that. But there's a lot of things that you've mentioned in your report which would be good to know whether they are statutory or not. Things like the summer holiday, the 24 clubs over the summer holidays. I mean, is that something that would be protected, or is it something that's up for review and on the table?
It's certainly not a statutory duty, but it's we use the word sponsorship. Is that right? We do have people who do sponsor us, so there's no reason why that shouldn't continue. But other than that, I really can't go any deeper. It is non-statutory, but as long as we have outside sponsorship on it, then it shouldn't be any reason why, unless we don't have the numbers of staff to facilitate it. I can't see any reason why it should be affected.
And sorry, Martin, could I just bring in? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So just to confirm, that's our holiday activities programme, which is actually central government funded by central government to enable us to offer a range of holiday activities for children that are on free school meals, our most vulnerable children. So currently that funding is in place. Now clearly, Councillor, that's a decision for central government, but currently that funding is in place and we are running those programmes. And I have to say, the take-up has been really, really positive.
We'll say me and Trina did talk before in a pre-meeting, and we did discuss some of the items you discussed would be brought to a report, if agreed by committee, at the next March committee. So.
Yeah, I think, Chair, that would be great, because I think even before decisions are made, because obviously you've got timescales, but just to have it laid out in a report, what the actual statutory services are, the untouchables, and the rest, because I think in order to sort of scrutinise, and I think we need to sort of know exactly what's untouchable and what's on the table, because then we can have our input into things that are on the table and have that sort of open dialogue about it. Because I've no doubt you want to sort of protect, as much as you can, but equally there's forces, out of the control of the council now. So it'd be really good to have that.
I would wholeheartedly say yes to that. We'll get that in front of you, because we do know what is statutory and what isn't. It's probably one of the services where we know it almost exactly. So we can put it out in front of you, But as I said, don't read anything into it, even non-statutory. As I said, if we can protect it, I will.
And within statutory as well, it's because obviously home to school transport will be statutory, but within that it's a bit like a library service. Is it statutory to have all these libraries, or is it statutory to provide something, even if it doesn't look like what we have now? So to even have that kind of information, because just again so we can really sort of scrutinise and delve into it really.
That in particular, the home to school transport is a real challenge, but it's policy driven. We have a policy. The policy is there, and that, as you say, that is statutory. We have to offer that service within that policy. I say I've been involved with 2 or 3 now where you can see people are questioning to try and go around that policy. That side of things is always going to be a challenge, and whilst it is statutory, it's statutory within our policy. If people are going to go to someone like the Ombudsman, where it goes outside of our policy, but the Ombudsman comes down on their side, we have no choice but to make the payment. I use the word emotional, and they are. You sit there and you listen to a parent or carer, saying why they think they should be, their child should be taken to school, and they can't do it. They need it paid for. It's quite, pulls on the heartstrings, but there is a policy. Financially, we have to stick to that policy, and that's what we do.
Thank you. If you are sort of coming back in March then with a report, I'll leave the statutory and non-statutory sort of discussion till then. Just a couple more from what you've said. In terms of...
Sorry, Councillor Kerrin, because this is time sensitive, could I bring in Councillor Arnold, who has had his hand up for a while, and I will come back to you, I promise. No you will get your chance to ask your questions.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your report, your little run through there. Some of the points I was going to sort of just ask about have been sort of fairly much covered. One of the things I was going to ask, because I was curious about the liaison that the council has with all of the academies, and I now know it's the convent school, which I was going to ask about. What the relationship, the working relationship is there. But I think you've already said that that's like a 2-weekly meeting, so that's good for me to know. Going back, because obviously I'm a relatively new councillor, I've had a couple of bits of casework, and some of those really revolve around actually the placements for children, and like I say, I've had a couple of occasions where children are being placed in schools far away from home. I know this is a very complex subject, and I'm not fully knowledgeable. But can you tell me, what work is actually being done, or is there constant work being done, and how can that be improved to make sure that the children, actually go to school where they live? And I do understand it's a complex subject, but I'll be interested to hear your thoughts.
Not necessarily just complex, but you've got to understand that it's the schools or the academies that make that decision. As I said, we're left with the appeal. We're left with the nasty part of it when it doesn't go right. So I know that the officers are talking to schools all the time. But I was going to say catchment, but that doesn't exist anymore. The word catchment doesn't really exist. But we are talking to them all the time. Sheila and I were at school today, and we were speaking about their particular way of route, and it is just that their school's here, so they've got a line that goes out either side. They have to take 50% from there, 50% from there. That's entirely their decision. Nothing, we've got no input in that whatsoever, other than when it comes down to that person who lives just there, who wants to go there. We have to sit down and work out the appeal. So, in answer to your question, Councillor Arnold, we are talking to them on a regular basis to try and make things easier to understand, but they're not. It's their own policies that they're implementing.
Yes, I mean, I think that's how sort of life has changed over recent years, isn't it? Because it was never like that when, going back many a year when I was younger, it wasn't like that. Thank you very much for that anyway. And then just the other thing I was just going to bring up, I had the pleasure of actually playing the Think Family service, a visit, and I found it hugely enjoyable, actually. Not enjoyable, but very informative. I mean, the guys there are doing fantastic work. And just wandering around the facility they've got down there, it's quite a tired building, isn't it? I know it's there to be built on and improved, but can you assure me that really that service is actually getting full attention there with its refurb costs, etc.? Because the manager there took me around and he showed me all the things that they wanted to do, and it's clear that help is needed, and to really enhance that service down there. So it's just good to know that that's actually coming through.
It's certainly on the radar that it's something I know needs doing. People are talking about it constantly. I can assure you. I don't know if you want to add something to that, Janet, but it is on the radar.
So in terms of, this is Oak Tree you're talking about, I'm assuming. Yeah. So there is work going on at Oak Tree. We put capital bid in, I think, early last year, and there is work ongoing at the moment to sort of improve the building. It's improved from where it was, and we're continuing with those improvements. So yeah, there is work ongoing to kind of make it a much more holistic building that can kind of meet the needs of the children and families that are coming in and out of there.
Yeah, I think that's sort of really the point. I was sort of, perhaps poorly, but yeah, I saw the work that was being carried out, and it's really encouraging and sort of quite heartwarming in some cases. And it was just really just trying to bring home, the need to actually make sure that these facilities are improved, and it's, we do absolutely everything we can, even in these tough times, to sort of make these facilities right for these people. So that's what it is. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Curran, would you like to come back in?
Thank you very much. One of the most important things, obviously, foster caring, especially, we're all very mindful of it as corporate parents. In terms of recruiting foster carers, what would you say are the main issues that are holding them back? So I think you alluded to it in your verbal report about sort of difficulty in getting foster carers to come on board. So in your experience, in your team's experience, what are the sort of main drivers, the main things holding them back, and is there anything we can help to mitigate against?
It's a really good question. In all honesty, I don't think anyone knows the real answer. If you think of yourself, I know you're a parent. It is hard work. It's hard work being a parent to your own children, but the thought of bringing somebody else's child on board. My heart goes out. My hat's off to all of them that do it. I think they're a different person. You have to be a different kind of person to be able to do it. We, as you know, we pay the council tax for the Thurrock foster carers. I'm not sure what else we can do financially, to be perfectly honest. It is paid, and I do believe it's paid on a quite a reasonable pay compared to everyone else. Well, please don't think that's the reason they do it at all. In fact, I know it isn't. But other than that, I'm not sure what else we can do other than just keep trying hard and let them know that they are loved, and we are here as a facilitator to help them cope with anything that life throws up. I don't know if you want to. Yeah, I'm sure Janet would.
So in terms of foster carers, as Councillor Johnson says, it takes a special kind of person to do it. It's 24/7, so it's not something you can do Monday to Friday, or you can turn off at 6 o'clock at night. So it does take a real commitment. I'd say nationally, I would say that foster carers, it's an ageing population. And so we've had, especially during COVID, I think it made people really rethink their priorities and what they wanted to do. Some of our foster carers moved out of Thurrock. Some people decided that they didn't want to be foster carers anymore. Our training is really clear about the expectations of being a foster carer and what we expect. We want the best for our children. We don't want people who are going to just give it half a go. We want people who are really committed. And so some people drop out at the early stages. We do something called Skills for Fostering, and that sort of really sets out the truth. We get our foster carers to go out and do our recruitment. We get foster carers to sit on our Skills to Foster. We do buddying. We do a whole range of things to encourage foster carers. One of the things that might stop some people is the room, having the physical room in their homes to offer a placement. But I think it's just one of those things. It takes a special person to do it. And nationally, it's an issue trying to get people to sign up to be foster carers.
Just finally, thank you for coming. I think this has been, I've not experienced, in sort of eight years, coming up to 9 years now, sitting on overview and scrutiny committees. We've never really had a portfolio holder come in for questioning like this. So I think it's a really sort of good way forward. So thank you, and look forward to grilling you next time. We'll get you to agree before you give us your holiday dates, Councillor, but hopefully see you in March.
So if I can, yeah, thank you. This particular ONS is close to my heart anyway. I've sat on it before. I really enjoy it, and it's so important. It really, they've gone now, but some of the young people that you see here, their input, the local plan. Who'd have thought that, the Youth Cabinet are talking about the local plan? What a wonderful thing to happen. This ONS committee is the one that facilitates that. I'll always come, always.
Thank you very much for that. That almost feels like an ending, but I'm afraid it's not. As both, I didn't mean to. But I think we all echo Councillor Kerring's words. It's been fantastic to have you here. I would now like to bring in Councillor Cockshaw.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to jump back a little bit just to your comment about EHCPs. And we're over 2,000 roughly now in the borough. And I can completely appreciate perhaps that has gone up quite significantly perhaps in the last years post-COVID. Is that the case? I know I'm looking at officers slightly. But just how does that? That must be a national. That's also a national trend, so it's not just unique to the borough. But more specifically, is when we're looking at drafting and creating HCPs, how on time are we really with these documents? I know for some parents, I've had a number of parents now contact me specifically about EHCPs and the worry and concern about how long sometimes they take, and they're worried about the level of care their child is being provided, and just really, what are we doing to give them reassurance?
I'll throw it open to the officers as well, but start by saying that when I first took it over, I remember saying, I think is it 20 weeks is the I looked at it, I thought, that's far too long. That really is far too long to take. But then when you start looking at what actually does go on, I have to say, I think the council side of things is undertaken in really, really good time. It really is. Parents can slow things down. Outside forces slow things down. And that 20 weeks really suddenly becomes very, very tight. I don't know if you want to add to that at all, but that's my opinion on it.
Shall I take that one? Yeah. There's no doubt the past year, so up until December, has been challenging for us. So we ended the year on 55% that were done within the 20 weeks. That was for a range of reasons. We had some staffing challenges, we had staff that left. And as Councillor Johnson said, I think the thing, and you said it very eloquently, thank you, we're reliant on a whole range of other partners to ensure we get the information to enable us to complete the plan. We are working hard to ensure that we improve that figure going forward. I'm pleased to say we're only just in this year, but the figures are significantly better, and that's because we've got near enough. Well, actually, no, we've got a full staffing complement. Our last member of staff actually started yesterday, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to report, a positive trend around the plans. I think the other thing for us to sort of consider actually is, you're quite right, there has been a significant increase in requests for plans. I think particularly around early years. I think I probably spoke to committee probably 12 months ago saying that I felt this would be the case, because a lot of those little children will have missed out on some of those early, the mother and toddler groups, the play groups, all of those things where they'll have developed their speech and language, they'll have developed their communication skills. But what we have done, and I think I reported this to committee last time, we're using some of our early years staff to go in and support with that, because what we're trying to understand here is, actually, is there a need for a plan? Or if we put in that additional support, can we enable that little child to come up to where they need to be? So we really are doing some sort of detailed work, particularly around our early years sector where we're seeing that. But clearly, the last year we finished around 55%. I don't know yet what the national figure is, so once I know that, I'll be able to come back to committee. Oh, yeah, so it's 59 for last year, but we haven't got this year, so we'll see what that brings.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Councillor, I think early intervention right the way across this portfolio is so important. The earlier we can find something, the earlier we can do something about it, or get a partner to do something about it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much. I'd just like a final question from myself, and it's something that's been discussed quite a lot at this committee. Myself, previously in relation to the fostering recruitment strategy, and myself and Councillor Kerrin and other members of this committee have put on the work programme for next meeting, what the council is doing for retention of certain key workers like foster carers, like early years. I think the voice of this committee is very much that retention is a key thing that the council needs to look at across the childcare sector, and this is a national issue across children's. But what are you doing specifically in view of retention in your portfolio?
You hit the nail on the head with saying it is a national issue. So we're concentrating on retention. So is everybody else. I think Janet went over a few of the things we do here locally in Thurrock, which I think is a really good offer that we've had out there for some time now. And if you're still struggling for retention when you think you're offering at the top, you do realise it's a problem. All I can offer is, Councillor, is say that whatever we're doing it on a constant basis, and we're constantly looking at what other people are doing. How can we do this better? What can we offer our local people? It's a problem, and it's not one that I'm going to sit here and say, just do this. We'll do it. It's a real problem. We know it is, but it is a national problem.
I guess what I would say is we reviewed our fostering payments and the rates that we pay to foster carers. We're constantly looking at what we can do differently. When we reviewed the rates, we met with our foster carers, we consulted with them, we asked them what were the things that matter to them. We look at what other agencies are paying, both surrounding local authorities, but also looking at the independent fostering agencies as well. Obviously we're paying the council tax for our foster carers who've regularly got children. We have things like our out of hours service, so if foster carers need additional support, we provide additional support. We meet with our foster carers regularly, so I'm due to meet with them in next month, and then I'm going to be meeting with them every month after that. So we try and have conversations with them to find out, well, what is it that will make the difference? What can we do differently? And we offer different incentives at different times. We celebrate the work they do. We do an awful lot to try and sort of make sure that we're retaining foster carers and doing the best that we can in that area.
And we have to remember it's not just about the money. We know it isn't just about the money. That's been proven, right across the board. As I said, the payments we make are up there with, with the best. It's not about the money at all.
And in addition to that, we also offer therapeutic support. We do a whole range of things to keep our foster carers and to make sure that they've got the support they need, both emotionally, physically, financially. And I think, as Councillor Johnson says, we know it's not money. It's more than that. Of course, they need money to do the job, but it is more than that.
Could I just add, when we talked about that foster carer who'd been foster carer for over 40 years, and I think a number of councillors met her at that event. Well, she's gone on to got a mayoral role of sort of honour award, and I think that went down really well with the foster care. She felt she'd been recognised by the borough, not just by us and people here. So it's things like that add an extra touch to what we can do, in order to try to retain our. It's a really scarce commodity that we're really clear that we have to support and nurture and make sure we have the best.
Thank you. My question was retention across children's services, including social workers, early years. I know we've got coming next March, but it's an issue, like I was saying, across the country, all across anywhere in any children's department. It is an issue. So I very much welcome that update on fostering, but is there any more on any other areas like early years, social workers?
Really, it all goes down the same line, Councillor. From this level, from being the portfolio holder, where the policy setter, if you like, the retention. When everybody's trying to retain people, it makes it that much more difficult. So when you think you're doing something different to someone else, and once they realise you're doing it, they start doing it. It is a real hard game to play, but.
So, committee have asked for a report to come back in March around what we're doing around early years retention. We are doing some work. We set up a working group locally, and actually that's taken on a national drive now. So, but we're putting that in the report. So I'm going to hold that, if I may, Councillor, to bring that back to committee, because I know you were really interested in this when I brought the childcare sufficiency report, and I think it is a real live issue. When we speak to early years colleagues, they are struggling around recruitment. And we're seeing what we can do to support with that. But I'll bring it back to the March committee.
So, Chair, March is going to be a very long meeting. Okay.
Don't worry, Councillor Johnson. If your portfolio update is there, I'll be sure it's right at the end. Of course. Yeah.
As you said, retention of social workers is a national issue across the country. We need children's social care. There are some areas that it's much easier to retain staff. But we do a lot of work around how we support our social workers, make sure that they have things like the right caseloads, so they have manageable caseloads, that they get regular supervision with their line managers, that there are conversations with them. So where social workers may be thinking, do you know what, is this for me? We try and talk to them and support them and make sure they've absolutely got what they need. Our social workers are very dedicated. We are clear that our social workers do the best they can with the children that they have and that they're working with. And so we have a retention policy for our social workers. So there is a retention fee for social workers to try and keep children's social workers in positions. And we have an open door policy. We support people. We offer regular training. We offer a whole range of things to make this Thurrock a place to want to work. We have agency workers that come in as agency, and because they like the way Thurrock works, the support that's available to them, they convert from agency to permanent, which is a real coup, because that's quite difficult to get people to convert from agency to permanent. It is a hard job, and we're looking at sort of recruiting. We've got a recruitment campaign out at the moment for newly qualified social workers, and that's an area that we want to nurture, grow our own. We've got Social Work Academy that works really closely with newly qualified social workers. We're looking at a support package around how do we support newly qualified social workers. So not just bringing them in, giving them a load of cases and saying get on with it, but actually having the support around them to make sure they can do that job and they can do it well. So there's a lot going on to try and retain social workers in Thurrock.
Could Can I just add on fostering and on social workers, there was a national review of social care undertaken by someone called Josh McAllister, and that was published last year. The government is imminently, I believe certainly before the end of January, about to publish their response to that social care review, and some of the key areas are going to be workforce and fostering. So I understand there'll be 3 consultations within that review, and we are, because on a call today with the Minister there, that they are saying this is imminent and about to be published. So in the next few weeks, we'll have a government response to that national review about some of these really tricky national issues about recruitment, about fostering, and how that's going to be managed. So again, I'm not suggesting maybe March, but this would be a really good for this committee to have, you know, the consultation responses from the government about implementation. And I am told that there will be funding attached to that, because that's one of the things that we've said regularly happens, is there's a lot of extra responsibilities on children's social care, children's services, without, as we know as a council, without the additional resources means that we're always taking on additional things, but we don't have the additional finances. And I understand there will be conversations about funding for children's services in that consultation and response. So I think that's on a very big strategic national level. Things we're just talking about now are going to be coming to the fore in the next few months.
Thank you very much. It seems like item 10 will be the most discussed work programme in a very long time. So, but, if no members have any further questions, okay, I'd like to thank Councillor Johnson for attending today, and I hope you've found your visit helpful. We certainly have, and we would be honoured to welcome you back. You're welcome to stay for the work programme. Yeah, and well, please enjoy. Thank you. Well, with that, we move to item 7, which is another verbal update, this time on the family hubs and Start for Life. Can I ask Claire Moore to present this report, please?
Good evening, everyone. It's only a brief update on what I shared in my report last time. So we have completed the required delivery plan and submitted that to the Department for Education on the 6th of January. We're awaiting agreement for the funding to be released. Feedback from both the sign-up form and the delivery plan has demonstrated that we have a good understanding of the programme and they are examples of good practice. So that was feedback from the Department for Education themselves. We've set up a multi-agency partnership board that will monitor both the delivery of the financial modelling and the delivery of the actual programme. The financial modelling we had to provide to the DfE to cover the 3 years of the programme as part of the delivery plan. We've set up a number of individual work streams that oversee the delivery of the funded elements of the programme, the data aspects, the publishing of the Start for Life offer, as well as the digital offer and comms and participation. And we also have a group that focuses on the non-funded elements of the programme too. We've started the recruitment process for the additional staff to be able to deliver the programme's funded elements. Everything is developing as we would like it, and within the agreed timescales dictated by the Department for Education. It's anticipated that the Family Hub network will be operational by March, or well on their way to be. We are still restricted by the Department for Education in relation to the wider comms, but we are meeting with them in the morning to request a timescale on when we can share the programme more widely, because I think you'll agree it is a good news story for Thurrock. I'm quite happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that update. Do any members have any questions? Councillor Kevin.
Yes, thank you. Just more of a point, really. It's really nice to see, because directly in the minutes for the last meeting, we requested an update this time, and it's been provided. So more of a comment, really, just if we could sort of have more of this, really, of updates based on things we asked for previous times, and just thank you for coming back and sort of keeping us abreast of it all. And, you know, and as new updates come in, you know, it'd be great to hear how it's all going.
I'm quite happy to come back again in March if that's required.
I think he was. I think March's agenda is looking quite full, to be honest. But I'll be happy to have you back after March, if that's okay with Councillor Kerrin, if he agrees to that. Thank you very much, and thank you for your report. Does any other member have any questions? No. Well, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the education attainment data 21 to 22. Can I ask Michelle Lucas to present the report, please?
Actually, I'm going to ask Andrea Winstone, who's one of my strategic leads, to present the report. So, Andrea.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. So, this is essentially a good news story for Thurrock. You'll see, I'm not going to go through all of the data line by line, but you'll see that the children in Thurrock, in relation to their peers across the country, have done very well, especially our children that are looked after and our children with special educational needs. So a really good news story. You will see that some of our younger children have not done as well as they have done in the past, and that reflects back on the pandemic and the lost opportunities. And we are doing quite a lot of work with our early years colleagues and our Key Stage 1 colleagues to help those children catch up, including a big focus on language and speaking and listening and the sorts of things they would have missed because they didn't have the same opportunities to socialise and to attend early years settings. Is there anything else I need to... So the recommendations are there, and I'd really appreciate and welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you very much. Would any member... Councillor Anderson.
Thank you for the report. Really, it's just to echo what you said. Going through this report, it really struck me as very positive, particularly the Year 6 outcomes for children looked after. I mean, you know, we are way ahead of the national average there, and it's brilliant to see. I suppose if I was going to ask a question, I'd just say that there's a brief sentence there that it says that it's due to the commitment of the virtual school. Can you just sort of put a bit more flesh on that, really? And
yeah, happy to. So the virtual school is knows their cohort really, really well, and what they do for the children coming up to their end of key stage, so either if they're end of key stage 2 or end of key stage 3, they'll support those children. Those that need it will get individual one-to-one tuition paid for by the virtual school out of the children's pupil premium money. So it supports those children to realise their full potential. So it's a commitment made, a financial commitment made by the virtual school, and there are teachers in the school that know the children really well and identify what they need in order to make sure that they meet their age-related expectations.
Just for some councillors who are not aware of what a virtual school is, for looked after children, we have a statutory duty for all of our Thurrock looked after children who are school age. I'm not sure, is it 200 and something? It's not all 300 looked after children, but it'd be all the school age children. Whatever school they're at, wherever they are placed, the head teacher of the virtual school treats those children as if they were in a school to her. They're all in schools, you know, either in the borough or elsewhere. And so what the virtual school does is another layer of looking at what are the needs of these children. They track their progress and then go into the schools that they are in to either challenge or to support or to say, right, I think this young person needs more. So that's what the virtual bit is. It's all of our looked after children who are school age are in a almost like in a virtual school to our head teacher, who then works with the schools that are actually got these children. So it doesn't matter where our children are placed, the virtual head will be working it, and that happens in every authority. So There will be looked after children that belong to another authority in Thurrock schools. There will be a virtual head who's watching for those children from whatever authority that they are placed in.
So every authority has a virtual school. So it looks to me as though we've got a really good. We just have a brilliant virtual school. So going forward, is there anything we can do just to make sure that we keep to these levels and it continues to be massively better than the national average?
Yeah, we recognise that we've got a strong team in the virtual school, and the work they do with the children, they meet with every child each term, so they know those children really well. They analyse their performance across the term and then work with and hold the schools to account that have got the children physically in them to make sure the children make the right progress. So yes, it is a strong team, and I'll pass your thanks on and your recognition on to them. Yeah, will do.
Thank you. All councillors have had your hands up, so I've got a list of the order you put them up, so please don't think I'm forgetting any of you. Councillor Kerrin, I saw next.
Thank you for this report, and it is good to see Thurrock children achieving well. In terms of GCSE, out of categories, you've got obviously those on an EHCP, those who are disadvantaged, and those who are children looked after. Out of those three, it's only disadvantaged who are slightly below where the national average. Have you got any sort of comments on that particular one? Because obviously it's great, children looked after, EHCP, all sort of better than national average, and it's not that the disadvantaged have done particularly bad. It's just that they're the only group that aren't sort of beating the national average. I just wondered if there's any thoughts on that.
Beg your pardon. Sorry, I don't have to say that all again, do I? I've forgotten what I said already. What I would say is, if you look at our national figures, we're slightly behind national for our whole school population, and that's where those children would sit in that group as well. So, yeah, it reflects the fact that the children that are disadvantaged have nationally and in Thurrock are not where they should be, all of them. But that's why they attract the pupil premium, and that's also would be where the children would also attract the national tutoring programme money as well.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right that all the educational disadvancements of the last couple of years felt even more by those who are already disadvantaged. Even because they've got disadvantage compounded upon disadvantage. So I just commend the work you're doing to keep focusing. It's reassuring as a corporate parent to sort of know that these children are being really closely monitored. Just one final one, really. Within Thurrock, are there any sort of differences between particular schools? In that, are there some schools who are pushing the data up, or some schools because they're performing better than others? So although the overall Thurrock picture looks good, are there pockets across the borough where certain pupils, because obviously a closer to zero the better, obviously, but it's within that you could have someone who overachieves by, say, 2 or 3 GCSE grades, and that masks someone who was 2 grades below. It's that. So is there any patterns that you're aware of across Thurrock?
We do know who the high retaining schools are. This year it hasn't been published by the DfE because of the impact of COVID. Individual school results are not being published. They will be next year, and we know what they are because the schools report them voluntarily to us. So they weren't required to by the DfE, but they have shared their results with us. So yes, we do know the higher achieving schools, and there's a number of reasons why schools achieve different results, and that can be down to demographics, and it can be down to quality of teaching and learning, and you'll be aware of schools in the borough that don't have such a strong Ofsted report for a variety of reasons. We are aware of them, and Michelle, Sheila and myself and other officers meet with every school every term, every year, to talk about academic progress of the children and to look at mitigation around what's happening for those children that are predicted not to do so well.
Sorry, can I come in as well? I think one of the other things that's a key priority is attendance, because what we know is that children need to be in school. And I have to say, this is an absolute key priority of the government, so much so that there's some regional resourcing now, and we have meetings now with that colleague. We've had to do a plan around how we're supporting with attendance. We have to do termly meetings with all of our schools where we've got the attendance data. So what we're hoping is the correlation of working with attendance, making sure our children and young people are in school, will then in turn support with trying to move some of this data around some of the most disadvantaged. But that will be challenging because, again, attendance, non-attendance is for a whole range of reasons. So we need to work with individual families around that. So I think, you know, it's worth committee being aware of the work around attendance. That will in turn look to support the academic sort of achievements of our children and young people.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not suggesting, I wouldn't want to have on a report, you know, schools that are doing this and schools that are doing that, because I think, you know, we're trying to bring schools together to cooperate and not compete and to share resources. So please don't think I'm saying I want a list of schools that have done X, Y and Z. What would be interesting, though, is that, for example, with Attainment 8 and GCS, English GCSE 9 to 5, it would be interesting what percentage met their target, for example, because, like I said, some overachievers and masks those who fell below because of how progress data is put together. It'd be interesting to see if there's any trends, like, you know, boys and girls, or, you know, just other differences that can help us even drill in even further, just to sort of know where they are. But it's reassuring to know that you're sort of tracking these children, and because they deserve it with all the disadvantage they have in life. But just if we could sort of see even more data like that, it would be really sort of enlightening, I think.
We can get, when at the time of writing this report, we didn't have it because the census hadn't been published, but we can feed census information into the programme that created the graphs, and so we can break it down into different groups. Yeah. If you wanted, I suppose it'd be next time, won't it? A more detailed report. Not March. But we'll have GCSEs and summer results this summer. So perhaps for those results, we can break it down into better groups or more informative for you. I'll make a commitment to doing it next time. Yeah.
Councillor Cockshott.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back slightly to early years. And some of the work the early years team are doing with providers to try and support younger children develop their own skills and knowledge and language, everything else. I'm being a bit specific. What are we actually doing, really? Are we helping support classes to socialise young children? Are we providing parents with additional support and advice, perhaps?
There's a number of things that we're currently doing. One of the new initiatives that we've been running with for a couple of terms now, I think, is we've got one of our early years members of staff in the early years team in the council is working with all of the early years settings, delivering free training to each setting around addressing speech and language delay, so that it's upskilling the practitioners to improve the children's outcomes, and also then therefore to avoid the gap getting wider, but to reduce the gap. That work will transfer to the family hubs when the family hubs open, and we'll be working with family hub staff and training the family hub staff to work with their families. We're also working, we work with the early years providers on quality improvement to make sure that the settings are good or better. And we recognise the settings that don't do well at Ofsted are the ones that don't engage with the early years team. So there's a lot of support that goes into the settings to meet the children's needs. We also have the area Senko, who is an early years specialist in special needs, and she supports all of the settings to meet the children's needs before they get a plan, or, before they're even on the radar of send support even, that she'll be trying to support the settings to meet individual children's needs.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, actually, just going back to a couple of points a little short while ago, just about the virtual school training, and we had a very lengthy report, didn't we, corporate parenting the other week, and I must get an email off actually to try and learn a little bit more about that because it seemed really quite intense actually. Yeah, I did have some questions regarding again looking at the graphs. I noticed that the disadvantaged group, with the GCSE results, so I was going to ask a very similar question. Another question really I've got is on page 28. It's the 3.12, and it's really just noticing, the children on the care plans. Obviously, they're outperforming fantastically well. And I've, sort of anecdotally, I've heard reports that people are moving into the area because of these results. Basically, they know they can get the care level that they really require. Is there any future planning to actually enhance services, to give better provision, because we don't want that standard to slip, do we? We want to build so we can actually keep that level there. So, did you see what I mean?
Absolutely, we're very proud, aren't we, of the children with education, health and care plans and how well they've achieved. And I think it's for a number of reasons. One, because as Councillor Johnson said in his report, the EHCPs are of better quality, which means the care and the education and care in them meets the children's needs, which is allowing them to achieve their full potential. We have a SEND development board. Oh, is it an improvement board now? SEND development board. It was an improvement board, which is making sure that at the council we're doing the right thing and that we're improving our statutory service. But we also work really hard with the schools. So we have Senko Forum every term, which has always got an element of continued professional development for the special needs staff in schools. We also, only last week, Malcolm Taylor and I worked with the Teaching School Hub to deliver some training to schools across the Eastern region on special needs and improving the outcomes for children with special needs. The comment you made about people moving into the borough, I think is probably for our outstanding special schools. And we're aware of that, and it does put a pressure on the special schools. It puts a pressure on, we don't have a waiting list, but it puts a pressure on the number of children that can't get into the school because it's full, or both the schools because they're full. So that's a good news story that we're very popular, but it comes with its own difficulties as well.
So, you are aware of that. So, when I was sort of looking through earlier on, I thought, oh, I wonder. So, that was definitely worth asking. So, thank you. Yeah, and then just coming back, really a slightly personal touch. My grandson started school sort of relatively recently, a year or so ago, and the COVID thing really did impact him, I think, quite a lot. His speech development was a little bit slower, and we noticed it as grandparents. But now he's obviously in school full time. We've actually now sort of noticed that his social skills are not quite there. But he's young, he's improving rapidly. But again, it kind of led me to thinking, maybe this is a common problem through the range. What work is actually being done, or is there work being done to improve social skills, and how do you measure that? How do we see that?
I think when Michelle and I first we talked with schools and with Michelle all the way through the pandemic. And one of the things that they quickly realised when children came back to school was their social skills, their physical fitness and their social skills were depleted compared to before the pandemic. So schools have worked really hard because they're not ready to learn until they're happy in school. So a lot of the first 2 terms back at school was working on the social skills, working on children's social and emotional skills, and getting them to a point that they're ready to learn, wouldn't you say? And I think mental health and physical health was what they were concentrating on before any academic.
Yeah. Yeah, again, really, it's just it's sort of as a grandparent, you sort of notice it because you drop him off at school now, and he's kind of running through the playground, and you know, they're bumping into young lads or girls or something that they're spending a day with, and you realise that he was actually missing that. I know he's got fantastic parents, and obviously we see him as well, but it just wasn't quite the same thing, and it has left a little gap. I mean, it's such a sort of formative years. It's just left that little gap. So again, that's great. That sort of work has been done on that as well. So thank you.
Councillor Panjard.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask about the educational attainment data 2021 and 2020-21. About we can see early years foundation stage, key stage 1, key stage 2 is far better, like above the national average level. Whereas if we see the key stage 4 is below the average. So just I would like to know that one, what are those reasons behind for the below the average level, and if we find the reasons, what are those, and what are the actions plans we are taking care about to get better for key stage 4.
We have closed the gap on national, so the schools are getting closer to national, but they're not there yet, and that's for a number of reasons, isn't it? Again, it goes down to school leadership. Some of it goes, and the quality of the teaching and learning in those schools. The teaching school hub is the mechanism for improving schools now. So the teaching school hub is where school improvement activity happens, and they will be working with the regional director's office to identify schools that need extra support, and extra support is put in through the teaching school hubs, either through lead teachers going into support, or leadership support, or teacher training. So that would be how that mechanism works. It doesn't. That responsibility no longer sits with the local authorities, one of our statutory duties.
So it means like it is a lacking of the teaching facilities, like we need to get improved from the teaching facility side you are talking about.
There's a range of reasons why our data is not at national level.
Because why I am worried, because our younger generation, maybe they are going into the wrong direction, or what. If it is something wrong from the like a student side, we can able to take care about more extra care, because younger generation is important. So that is the right age to set. The future is their future will be depend upon the from secondary stage to the further studies. So that's the thing I'm thinking about. Our Thurrock younger generation need more support, or the teaching side, like said facilities need to be get improved.
So I think, Councillor, one of the things around this is ensuring that young people have got choices in school about where they go next. So I think one of the things we've done, and we've done well over a number of years, is work with our schools around careers advice, employability and skills, what's available, because actually what we need to recognise is the academic pathway isn't right for all of our young people. We need to make sure that we've got a whole range of opportunities that also include apprenticeships, that also include other work-based learning and training opportunities. That's why it's so important that we do the work with our local businesses to ensure that, we are preparing our young people for the world of work. And I think schools are working hard with us on that, so our young people do get the opportunity to find out what careers are available. I think Thurrock's got some fantastic opportunities. I think we need to really hold on to that. It's a challenging time for the authority, but let's not remember all the good things we've got here and the things that we can do, particularly for our young people going forward. So I think we're working hard with our employability and skills team to work with our schools. You heard our young person talk about our 11 to 25 strategic partnership. That's where that all plays out. Schools are very aware, our secondary schools are very aware of this. They're working hard to put in additional tuition, additional things to bring sort of our young people up to that that national level. But I wouldn't want committee to just be focusing on that. I think it's important that remember there are other opportunities for our young people. We need to make sure that we promote those and enable young people to access those going forward.
Yeah, we need a more campaign so that the younger generation, they know that there are a lot of opportunities for them to. So, okay, then it will be good to have, like, we need a more facilities to make sure that younger generation into come into the right direction. And also, I would like to ask one more question. Based this like graphs and this data, average data, have we taken into consider like all the ward school? Like, did we pick up each ward like like one school from the each ward, or like any specific area we have taken the average?
So the data can be run by ward. As we said, we're not sharing individual data for schools this year. That's a decision that's been made nationally, although our schools have been very open with us in the local authority, which I think goes back to our partnership, how we work with our schools. That will be available in the next sort of academic year, because that will come back in. I think, yes, we're aware of some of our schools that have more challenges around some of that. So where we see that, we put in some additional support where we can, particularly where we're looking at young people that move out of secondary into our post-16. What we're looking to do is to make sure our young people are in education, employment and training, so they're not termed as NEET, which is not in education, employment and training. So we're doing a lot of work around that. So I think going forward, when we can share that, that more detailed drilling into different wards, because if I shared that, colleagues, you'd know exactly what schools we were talking about, and the agreement this year is that we will not share data at that level, but that will be coming as we go through future years.
Okay, if we have a backup plan for those schools, then it will be good for us. So I'm curious about to know that one, because which school is, what are those schools are, falling down, then we need to make sure that extra support from the council. So that is the reason I'm asking this question. Thank you for your explanation. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much. Does any other member have any questions? No? Well, with that, I will turn to the recommendations on page 21. We'll take them as a block. That's recommendations 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3. Are all members okay with the recommendations? Okay, then I agree. Agreed. Yeah. Thank you. That takes us to agenda item 9, which is the progress update on peer review and case review action plan. Can I ask Priscilla, Bruce, Annan to introduce the report, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I have included in the bundle the progress on the work of the Thurrock Local Safeguarding Children's Partnership. I won't go through everything because it is an update on the work that I spoke to you about in November. So really I'll just pick out some of the key areas. So I did talk to you about the annual conference being working together to identify and tackle neglect in Thurrock. We had to move the conference from the date in December to a date in April, simply because a lot of our agencies were reporting capacity issues with sickness, and so we felt that moving it to April would give them much more in terms of time to gather and to make sure that they could release staff to attend the conference. The conference is an in-person conference. We did think about changing it to a virtual conference, but we thought actually no, an in-person conference would be much more impactful in terms of building relationships and making sure that we have those closer conversations, the workshops, face-to-face, sharing tools and things like that. So we've taken the decision to move the conference, and we do have a date for the conference, which is Wednesday the 26th of April. It's an in-person conference, and agencies can book many of their practitioners to attend that conference. Just moving down, at 2.4, we have a pathway to service and threshold intervention document, which we've recently refreshed. That's now been published and launched, shared with everyone across the partnership. And what we've done is we're holding a launch event, which will be opened by Jenny Coles, our independent chair, on the 13th of March, and this is a launch event to bring together all from across the partnership, so education, the police, health, education colleagues as well, which I've just said, to bring them together just to talk about the document, to make them aware of, so that document actually highlights all the things that we do across the partnership, what makes a good referral, who's involved in that referral process, what children and families can get in terms of intervention and service provision, what I suppose referrals will meet a threshold, and if something doesn't meet the threshold, doesn't mean that they don't get service provision, they still get support, and what that support looks like. And so that launch event will bring together all practitioners from across the partnership to talk about referrals, numbers, what happens to the life cycle of a referral, and to be able to ask those questions about maybe some individual cases that they've had along the way, and what they may like to include in a referral to make it much more impactful in terms of that process. Moving down to 2.5, I think when I was here last time, it was the week before we delivered our Walk Online Roadshow, and I'm pleased to say that we had 4,000 children along with their school staff that came to the roadshows that covered 3 days from years 5 and 6. It was a really, really well received event, or 3 days of events. We had presentations from our online safety presentation provider, talked about a range of different issues, and one of the things that came out from us from those presentations is the children were very much, I suppose, exposed to online challenges, and that's one of the things that we felt had come out. So that's something that we're going to be doing a lot more background work on, and we've done a parents follow-up session around that as well. In March, we're picking up those children in year 7 and 8 that weren't able to attend because of the restrictions, so we'll be doing that again over 3 days, but tweaking some of the content so that it's age appropriate and emerging issue appropriate for those children. Moving down to 3, I've just given an update on our action plans, and just to say that the action plan for the thematic review, which Sheila referred to earlier, is on track and has been signed off, after I'd submitted this report, and so it's not in there now. Also, what's been signed off is also the learning from other reviews action plan. So it's important to say that the last one, the learning from reviews action plan, isn't an action plan that's solely for Thurrock, but it's one that picks up a lot of the recommendations from other national reviews that we're going to track and look at and see what we can do differently, if at all anything, within Borough, and to make sure that we're assured that these incidents are mitigated in Thurrock as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your update. I'm just curious before I move on to other members. With the roadshow, was the take up the same with the ones who missed it because of COVID as it would have been expected?
So we're still taking bookings. We're still taking bookings from secondary schools for the roadshows for year 7s and 8s, which are the ones which we essentially call the mop-up sessions. So we won't know that until we've delivered them in March, but we are taking bookings. So I'm hoping that those children will all be sent to the mop-up sessions in March, but I can feed back to you at another meeting as to those numbers. I won't say March.
Well, thank you very much for that. I will now ask Councillor Arnold to come in.
Thank you, Chair, and hello again, Priscilla. Yes, just the 2.5, the Walk Online Roadshow. I mean, I paid it a visit, and I've got to say, I found it so enjoyable and so informative. It's actually left me, even this evening I was talking about it with someone, I couldn't believe what I heard, and the involvement and the way the children actually got sucked into it as an event. It was absolutely fantastic to see. I mean, they all had a great time. I mean, there was parents there as well, or there was adults there as well. Obviously, all getting involved with it as well. And I would actually recommend anyone that hasn't been to get themselves along there, because it is great. On the other side of it as well, it's actually quite disturbing as well, isn't it? I think it's as an adult and an older sort of parent, actually seeing the level of what actually happens now online is really quite disturbing. It's quite an eye-opener, actually. And again, that side of it has left really marked me. And I do continue to talk about that with people as well. And that sort of leads me on to something else as well, because straight after that, I spoke to my son. asked him all sorts of questions, and he was really as blank as what I was before I walked in. I know you did a session virtually on December the 1st. Are you planning to do anything sort of actually a live event for parents as such? I know that's probably a lot harder to do and maybe time consuming, costs money, etc. But I can't. I can only imagine that if we can really get parents to engage into this as well, I mean, that will really, really benefit things, wasn't it? Because it was quite clear that the children actually knew how to dodge their parents' attention. They knew how to use the technology, so parents didn't have a clue what was going on. And it's utterly amazing. So do you have any plans to actually get parents fully on board?
Yeah, so it's funny you should say that, because it's something that we've been talking about for, I suppose, in between the November till now, in terms of maybe having something, like you say, in person. The reason why we've done it virtually over the last, I suppose, year and then before COVID is because of the working times and the commitments of parents, and at the time that we've been running it. So you'll know that we ran that session from 8 till 9:30, and I think it's proven difficult to get parents and carers to commit to that later time of the evening, but it's something that we've thought about, maybe, I suppose, thinking about more creative ways in which we could do it and running it at a time when parents and carers might be more able to do it. So we have thought about that. The other thing that we've done is worked with schools, because they also do a lot of parent workshops as well in terms of online safety, and bringing those parents in to talk about very much what you've just spoken about the fact that some parents are not as, I suppose, internet savvy as others, and the children do run rings around them and get round them, and I suppose are then exposed to content that they shouldn't be. So we are thinking about some more creative ways in which we can engage parents in person, but we do now rely on schools to do some of that in-house stuff with their parents on an individual school basis.
Do it after the school one. Invite them for breakfast. There's no parent ever has breakfast. So once we've done the school one, we drop the kids off.
Good idea.
Come there, cup of coffee and a bacon roll. You won.
Thank you.
They're lovely, thank you. And I just finishing up really. I mean, the two Johns. I mean, they put on a fantastic show, didn't they? I mean, they're a real double act. They are. They should be on the TV, really. I think.
I think they have been.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Does any other member, Councillor Kerrin?
Thank you very much for this report. In terms of case reviews and action plan update, I'm particularly drawn to the thematic review into serious youth violence, and I'm kind of minded of the excellent question earlier that Councillor Anderson asked of Councillor Johnson about county lines and things like that. Now, I do recognise from what's been written here that it's currently going through the governance process, and I'm sure we'll get a full report once it's gone through. But as it says, work has started on some actions. Would you be able to give us a sort of a verbal update on those actions that have started, please?
I don't have the actual action plan in front of me, so I can't go through it in detail, but I do remember that there are about 6, I think I've written it here, so there are 6 recommendations, and each recommendation has kind of like subsections. So you may have recommendation 1, and then you've got A, B, and C. And so where we've got some of those actions that the agencies know that they need to do work on them, they've started to do that work. So even though it hadn't gone through the governance process and been signed off at various meetings, those agencies got to work and started some of those. And that's the reason why I've put on there that some of those actions have started. But without having the detail in front of me, it'd be wrong of me to kind of just maybe work off memory. But the reason I put that in there was so that councillors wouldn't think that, because it's not been signed off, we're just stalled and waiting for it to be signed off, when work can start as soon as possible.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased to see it on there. I think you know that I've just, the more information the better, and even if it's something you can't elaborate on now, it's good that it's on the written record for us. When do you think the government's process will be complete?
So it has gone to most of the groups. It's gone to the strategic group now, so it's just needs to go to our management exec board just to sign it off, but that's it, and that's March. That's only because those meetings are quarterly, so by the time it gets to that meeting, it's March, but we've started the work, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Kerrin points out the next agenda item, the work programme, might be an extremely long debated one. But it might be the first committee in Thurrock's history to extend standing orders for the work programme. But does any member have any more questions on agenda item 9? Well, with that, I would like to turn to the recommendations on page 36, 1.1. Which is the committee note. Agreed. Thank you, Alex. I do hope you read this beforehand.
Always.
Thank you. So now we move to agenda item 10, which is the work programme. I'm thinking with the amount we have had today, there might be a case of calling an extraordinary meeting. So let's list out what we want to see on there first of all. I remember we wanted a portfolio holders update there from Councillor Johnson again, if he is still willing to do that. Yeah. So we've got that one. Can I bring Sheila in now, if that's all right? For we've discussed some earlier. If, the procurement. Yep.
Sorry, did you want me to?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I think we were saying that by March we will have a clearer idea around about savings and budgets, etc. So we ought to have that as an item.
Can we do that after that?
You might want to include it in yours, Councillor Johnson.
Okay, we also spoke about the buses, transport, procurement of transport, correct? Yeah,
Yeah, we've got two reports, haven't we, that have
yes,
to be on
sorry,
next in March.
Yes.
Apologies, Sheila. Sorry, I've probably talked over you there. Yeah, we do. We've got the re-procurement of our home to school transport contracts, and we've also got our schools capital sort of allocations. Both those reports need to go to Cabinet for sign-off, but they would normally come to ONS first for ONS to have a look before they travel to Cabinet. So I'm conscious that we spoke about this earlier, didn't we? That ONS is I think the 14th, and I think Cabinet is the 15th. The challenge I have is these reports have to go to Cabinet on the 15th because we've got a procurement timeline that we have to follow. So they have to go to Cabinet for discussion and agreement.
Well, if an extraordinary committee was to be called in February, would those two reports be able to be ready by then?
Absolutely.
That gives more time to scrutinise, if all members are okay with that. Okay, well, I believe I'll call an extraordinary meeting for those two items, and then the others can continue on the March meeting, if that is okay. If anyone else does, any other member have comments on the work programme? Councillor Kerrin first.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of Councillor Johnson coming back, can I just be really clear? One of the reports going to be the standard portfolio holder report that used to be at full council, which is now, as part of the constitution, in scrutiny committees. Yeah. And the other one, a specific thing about the statutory and non-statutory services in light of the current financial situation. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Arnold.
Thanks, Chair. Just a special request, really. Could you possibly the extraordinary date for February, if we can get that as quickly as possible? Yes, it's got a number of things I want to book up and like to be here.
I'll liaise with Democratic Services,
Thank you.
And for the best time, you'll all be aware. Okay. Sheila, sorry.
Again, just that we will have the government's response and implementation to the Josh McAllister Care Review, which is pretty key to the working in children's services, even if that's just a short item, just to say these are the consultations, this is when they're closing. But I think this committee would like to have some sort of dialogue about that.
Well, yeah, we can have that on the March one. Yeah, certainly. I think. Councillor Johnson, you said the statutory and non-statutory would be very easy, and because it's very clear what already is statutory in there. Would it be possible for officers to have that on the February one as well? I'm just looking at balancing the two.
I'm just trying to think, because although we say February, probably the reports would be due almost next week. So I think it's getting the date, and then we work back from that. But we will do our absolute utmost.
If not, we will just go with those 2 ones that are due for Cabinet on Wednesday. And I'm sure we've still got room for the others. But so.
It's fine. Yeah, in March, which is the 8th.
Okay, right. Brilliant, thank you. Does any other member have any comments? No? Well, I declare this meeting closed at 8:59. Thank you all for attending.